Hello? Hello?
Hello there.
Hi. Welcome to the Voice of Azerbaijan. My name is Serdar, and we will have a great interview with each other.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Serdar, and greetings to all your listeners.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here by the telephone in the Voice of Azerbaijan. And if I pronounce your name correctly, Drewery, yeah?
That's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. My first question is about your organization. Would you please tell us a little bit about the organization you work with, and in what kind of cases do you have in your organization?
Well, Amnesty International, the organization I work for, is a global membership movement. That is to say, there are members in a great many countries, members and supporters, approximately 3 million across the globe, mainly, I suppose, in Northern European countries, in North America, in South America to a lesser extent, and indeed in Africa, and some in Asia as well. There is, for example, in Norway, a full structure, a big section, we call it, of Amnesty International, servicing and working with the campaigners, human rights campaigners in Norway. And indeed, they are working on cases relating to Iran and a great many other situations as well. The ones I'm most familiar with are in the Middle East. I work in the Middle East and North Africa program of Amnesty International.
Yeah.
And our colleagues, our friends in Norway and across Scandinavia have been very active in supporting the work that we do in those countries.
Yeah.
You asked about the work that we do.
Yeah, and
of course there's
yeah, exactly. I got the answer, and I mean, just what kind of cases?
Well, the cases that we take up represent the full range of human rights concerns expressed by the international human rights conventions. These are the United Nations treaties, the international treaties. So it's International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, everything that's in that, everything that's in the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, and a range of others relating to other issues. So with respect to, for example, the Azerbaijani community in Iran, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights says that people living in a country, living in a space, in a state, should be able to use their mother tongue, their native language.
Yeah.
And we have been very supportive of the Azerbaijani community, but other communities as well, the Kurdish community, the Baluchi community, the Turkmen community, and the Arabs as well.
Yeah.
For all of those communities to be able to use their mother tongue and to be educated in that language. And this extends also to the availability and non-discrimination in economic resources. So our organization was very concerned about what was represented by the demonstrations about Lake Urumie and the condition of the lake, and indeed how that was affecting the community in that area.
Yeah. But these days, the word Iran, when is written on the paper or comes to the mind, the human rights and the nuclear power are the first things come to the mind. And we know that Iran is the land that human right is never respected by the government in this country. And, you know, already you just mentioned about the South Azerbaijanis, that millions of people are not allowed to have education in their own mother tongue. And and the people just fighting for it to have their own rights are considered as the workers or the spies for America and Israel, and these are the cases just the government give to these people, and they have something just to put them in the prison and these kinds of things, yeah. And according to these kinds of things, you get all the time from media and from people comes to you and write to you. Has your organization ever tried to have direct contact with Iran's government about human rights? And as you mentioned about Urmia Lake, the drying up of Urmia Lake is totally, we believe that by the government happens these days, is totally by purpose. Have you ever tried to have direct contact with the government about these cases?
I mean, there's two ways that we have tried to have direct communications with the Iranian authorities. The first, as I mentioned, Amnesty International is a membership organization, and the members of the organization have written directly to the government of Iran about these and indeed other cases. Those who write about individual cases of concern, cases, for example, relating to Saeed Metinpour, about, oh goodness me, so many people over the years that we've raised, people who've been demonstrating, taking part in events at Babak Castle and so on. Over the years, there has occasionally been a response from the central authorities about individual cases to those individuals who have sent appeals.
Yeah.
What they have not done is had a discussion or an ongoing communication with the structures such as Amnesty International in Oslo, in Norway, or least of all us here in London, where the research headquarters happens to be located, or indeed anywhere else, in France, in Poland, in Spain, where activists have directly approached the government.
Yeah.
There have been occasional single meetings, but sadly, since 1979, and indeed before 1979, they have never been continued. They've never been durable or sustainable. Never. But bear in mind, as I say, that was also the case during the time of the last Shah.
Yeah, and I've got a question from internet, from Facebook, and this question is about why the matter of the case of South Azerbaijan never comes to the media and European medias and American medias and especially in British medias. What's wrong with it? If you think that the case of South Azerbaijan is really strong inside Iran, yeah? If the people think that and Amnesty International works with it, why never it comes to the media?
I can't explain myself why a particular story on a particular day will attract media attention or not. What I can say is that what we have tried to do is to try and represent the full dimension of a human rights violation, or the dimensions of the human rights violation in Iran. So, for example, when we talk about the issue, the core question, the problem of stoning of women for adultery, our research has shown that a number of those women who have been sentenced were disproportionately from the minorities, linguistic minorities of Iran, including a number of Azerbaijanis. And they are from poor, rural communities not in the city centers and so on. And it appears likely that they did not fully understand the court proceedings. And we have used those examples, like for example, in the case of Sakine Mohammadi Ashtiani, who's an Azerbaijani woman who's facing stoning on a charge of adultery, and she is reported to have returned to prison after hearing the sentence, and she asked the other people there. She said, apparently, she said, "What does rajm mean?"
Yeah.
And even if some of them said sangsar, which she may or may not have understood, we understand that when they explained in Azerbaijani Turkish what exactly happened, she fainted and passed out and so on, because she did not understand the process.
Yeah.
She didn't understand the process because it was in a foreign language, and there was no support for that. It's all very well for a state to have a national language, but indeed where there are speakers of other minority languages, such as in India or Pakistan or a number of other countries, indeed even in Canada or indeed in Norway, support is generally given to the speakers of those minority languages. So what I'm trying to say to you is that there are very strong, pressing, important cases relating to human rights in Iran that do get coverage, that are important for the media, but as to why they don't understand, why they don't pick up, why they don't hear the Azerbaijani dimension, or indeed Kurdish or Arab or Turkmen, or a number of other cases, or while we're talking about it, the religious dimensions of some cases, or indeed whether or not a person is rich or poor of these cases. It's very difficult for us to explain that. It's certainly something that we try ourselves to uncover. What are the important features of a case when somebody is sentenced to death for drug trafficking? For example, in a report that we issued in December, we talked about the disproportionate use of the death penalty against the Kurd Sunni minority, which is a small Sunni minority living north of the city of Urumiyeh, going north, but very much south, let's say, of Maku. And our findings suggest that this is a community which has been neglected, which has been overlooked in terms of education, in terms of investment, and as a result, it seems, at least in part, that community has been involved in drug trafficking.
Yeah.
Drug trafficking is a crime. It's a recognizable, understandable crime. But we also are trying to say that the authorities in Iran, in the province of West Azerbaijan, should understand why these individuals turn to that crime. So we do talk about it. But just to go to your question again, I'm sorry, I can't explain why something is picked up by the media and not, because the story is there.
Yeah, exactly. I want to focus my questions on South Azerbaijanis, the Azerbaijani, as you said, Azerbaijani minorities, but actually they are not in minorities, and they are around 35 million Azerbaijani Turks living in Iran. And we believe that when the case and the people try to get their own fundamental rights, for example, about mother language, and when they think that these kinds of things in Europe, and especially in Europe, America, and in England, comes to the media, they can get a lot of extra energy to continue, and they believe that the voice they can just tell the things with high voice to the world. What can Amnesty International do to bring these cases to the media?
Well, I think it's what we have been doing. When there are egregious, very serious human rights violations in Iran and indeed other countries too, we do our best to choose an example, what we call an emblematic case to represent the situation, to distill and give the important features about that case. And there are many individuals in the Azerbaijani experience who provide that experience, provide that sample, that information about, such as Farhan Akbari, such as Said Metinpour, such as Abdullah Sadouqi, and indeed, might I add, Sakine Mohammadi Ashtiani, and a lawyer, a very well-known lawyer who's now had to leave the country, leave Iran, Nahi Mahmoudi, who's now in Turkey.
Yeah.
So, as I say, I think we're doing our best to represent the violations that are being carried out. Violations, as I say, in the context of international human rights law, there and indeed in other countries. And we do our best to share that with as much media as we can, without distinction, as to what that media picks up, does not pick up. We have no control over that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But we continue to campaign for those individuals, as I say, without distinction.
Yeah. I want to a little bit strengthen my question, about the language of South Azerbaijanis. Have you ever tried, when I say you, I mean your organization as a general, and have you ever tried to mention the language matter of South Azerbaijanis as linguistic genocide?
Those are very difficult terms now. Genocide, as you may know, in international law is generally, indeed as I understand it, I could be wrong, is applied to human beings and a systematic effort to murder individuals. I don't know. I personally don't know what the term would be, but certainly the extinction or the non-respect of languages of let's say mother tongues and native languages throughout the world has historically been very bad, and we lose languages. We human beings lose languages with a far greater frequency than what we should. I personally am from Canada. I was raised in Canada, and in the areas certainly where I lived in Canada, I know that the governments of Canada could have done more and should have done more to support the many, many, many languages that people that I knew were speaking in and around the cities where I lived, languages which had very few numbers of speakers, hundreds or thousands of speakers, and those languages are now dead. Those languages are gone, and their culture is gone with them. And by contrast, I was very impressed when visiting the city of Tromsø to see in its library, written in the local language, which I think is related to Finnish, a local language, a minority language of that area. And this is the kind of support which is very useful. It's also not the support that languages and cultures in Iran are getting. As you say, you call it linguistic genocide. That's not the kind of terminology we can use, because it's not a terminology which is understandable in terms of international law. We hold the authorities to uphold international human rights law, and we must use the language of international human rights law to ensure that accuracy and clarity is preserved.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Drewery, on behalf of all Azerbaijanis, especially South Azerbaijani in Iran, I appreciate your attempts and thank you for accepting our invitation by telephone. Thank you.
It's a huge pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good evening.